Greetings. Welcome to Eric's Angle, the podcast for Iowa State mathematics students. I am your host, Eric Weber, chair of the mathematics department at Iowa State University. Today's guest is a 2017 graduate of our program, majoring in both mathematics and economics and minoring in statistics. His name is Tanner Boyle, and he is currently a data scientist at an actuarial and health consulting firm. While at Iowa State, Tanner was both a calculus tutor and a captain of the men's ultimate frisbee team for 2 years. Tanner says he is passionate about communication, especially technical writing and presentations to unfamiliar audiences. Please welcome Tanner Boyle. Hi, Tanner. Thanks for appearing on Eric's Angle.
Hi, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start off with having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Tanner Boyle. I'm from Iowa. I grew up in Cedar Rapids. I did my undergrad degree at Iowa State. I studied math and economics, did a minor in statistics, and I think a certificate in actuarial science or something like that. Then I went and I worked for 2 years as an actuarial student. So that's an exam taking actuary. I don't think that is a terribly interesting period of time. And then that's kind of what moved me into the next phase of my career, which was actually going back to Iowa State to do a master's in statistics. And I've been working ever since then as a data scientist at an actuarial consulting firm called Milliman.
And so what does that look like? What does that look like in terms of your job right now?
Yeah. So
what does it mean to be a data scientist? Let's ask that question.
Yeah,
what does that mean for a data scientist?
Great question. I get this one a lot. A data scientist is a really fancy phrase that it's kind of been like the hot job for 10 years now, ever since we really started learning how to deal with big data and start collecting lots of data. And so I guess a data scientist to me is just kind of a mix between a statistician and a programmer, like a developer. And the extent to which it's mixed, like the interpolation between those two jobs is variable depending on the sector that you work in or the hierarchy within your individual organization. That job title doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be using Python or R or any other programming language, or even working with experiments on a day-to-day basis. It's a very, very big umbrella. But generally, it's somebody that uses statistics along with some amount of big data, whether that's massive, like terabytes or petabytes or whatever, or if it's hundreds of thousands of rows, that is still kind of difficult to do or whatever. So yeah, it's a nice mix between kind of the theoretical work that I did in grad school and kind of an applied basis that I like a lot.
And so for your current position, I have two questions. One is, how much coding are you actually doing? And my second question is, was your master's in statistics, was that in a sense a prerequisite for what your position is now?
Yeah, good question. I'll actually start with the second question, if that's okay. So that's basically what, if somebody wants to be a data scientist, what track do they typically take? The easiest answer is that usually data scientists have a graduate degree of some kind, whether that's a master's or a PhD. They don't have to. We just hired an intern, or I guess the intern that worked with me this last summer, she just finished an undergraduate, a bachelor's degree in data science, I guess is a thing now. And she was great. But typically you have a graduate degree in some STEM field. So it does not have to be a master's in data science. That's possible, but usually a lot of the candidates that we see are math, statistics, economics, computer science. I don't know if I said physics, just any of the like hard STEM fields can make great data scientists as long as you're studying those with a computational focus and you have a really good exposure to linear algebra is kind of the basis behind a lot of the machine learning algorithms that we use, or at least the most basic ones. So that's kind of the track to get into data science. So that is specifically why I studied statistics for my master's degree. Is that I personally think that it's the best degree if you have to choose one. But any of the ones that I told you are all great. And so then on a day-to-day basis, I do a lot of programming. I would say that I'm a pretty methods focused data scientist. So on a day-to-day basis, that is the majority of what I do. I do work in an actuarial consulting firm, like I said. So that's insurance and time value of money and things like that. And that industry is notoriously slow to move because insurance is highly regulated for good reason. And so I do a lot of Excel work when I work with them. So those are kind of the two sides of my job, is that if it's actuarial or insurance related in nature, then it's probably doing stuff in Excel. And then if it's more, data science focused, then I use a lot of Python. I used R all throughout grad school, and then at the first part of my job. And then over the last 2 years, I've started using PySpark. So Apache Spark was a distributed computation framework.
And so how much math appears in your activities in your current position?
Yeah, I would say that is definitely one of the biggest or I guess a big misconception that I see is that as soon as you leave academia and you enter data science and you just forget all the math, and you have packages that do everything for you. You have a library that can run all these computations and then evaluate them and then decide which one's best, and it just spits it out. That is not my experience working as a data scientist. I think that there's a pretty good amount of math in the things that I do. I think maybe the most recent example was a few weeks ago. There was a package I was working with to help me do some causal inference. So somebody had done this experiment that wasn't a randomized controlled trial, and they needed to compare the control or the study group and the non-study group. There wasn't a control group. And so there was a package that was training this machine learning model to help me understand the potential causal impacts. And I wanted to edit in some custom functionality so that, to make it a little bit more tuned for our use case. And so I had to go into the package itself, the Python library, and edit, go in and read the functions and go and edit in to use a different evaluation function. So I guess the basic idea was anybody familiar with statistics with random variables can have a bunch of different distributions theoretically. One of them that's really popular is like a gamma distribution. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but we wanted to use a different one. And so I had to go in and recalculate the derivatives of the the log likelihood function, and then look at the Hessian matrix and program that in. And so that actually was a pretty good amount of math. I don't do that on a day-to-day basis, but math is still super important in what we do.
Yeah, you used a big word there, Hessian. I think that probably doesn't, that's not a word I think most of our undergraduate students would hear, actually, but that's awesome. You actually calculated derivatives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the second order
Calculus.
derivatives and the NLE estimators and stuff. So yeah, that's straight out of I think what is the grad class? It was like Stat 542 is when you start learning how to calculate Hessians by hand. Yeah.
We should probably do that in the math department. Calculate Hessians.
Hey, yeah, I think it's helpful, but
we do the Jacobian,
guess,
but not the Hessian. So
yeah, to each your own, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like fun, actually, to me. I mean, that's the kind of thing I would like to do, actually. So I assume you had fun with that.
I have a ton of fun. Yeah, my job. I guess I didn't say this, or maybe I did. I work at a consulting firm, and so that's an important distinction from lots of other companies that you might work at, where you're salaried and you just you have a project and it takes as long as it takes, and you set your deadlines and things like that, and you get paid the same at the end of the day. With consulting, it's a little bit different in that, I mean, I have a steady salary. I'm not going up and down, but all the work that I do is tracked to a specific goal. And so a client wants us to do a specific thing, and I need to make sure that I can plan out exactly what they want. And that can be really tedious and difficult, but also it gives us the opportunity to work on lots of really, really cool problems, because we get lots of different clients that come to us. And I might spend my morning working on, like I said, this programming the Hessian matrix for a Tweety distribution in this causal framework. And then the afternoon, I might be doing a really simple actual to expected analysis in Excel or something. So it's a very wide ranging um, project list.
Sounds like, to me, it sounds like that's much more problem oriented than task oriented. Like if you have
Yeah.
clients or customers or whatever you want to call them coming to you saying, we need help with this, that's a
Hmm.
problem, right? And that's what we like to do in mathematics. We like to solve problems.
Exactly. And that is like it scratches this primal itch deep inside me, the solving problems. And I think you described it perfectly well, is that a client will come to us and they'll either have a problem in mind or they'll tell us one thing, but what they really want, we have to help them figure it out. But it is very, very yeah, um problem oriented that we solve this thing for them and we get it done as much as we can. We have to hand it off and explain exactly what we did. Um, which is, I guess, another key component of the job we can maybe get into later that I enjoy. And then we move on to the next one and we go and solve a different problem. And as somebody with ADHD, I really appreciate having all these different distractions coming in and all these different people pinging me for questions. So it suits me very well. Yeah.
And these aren't prepackaged solutions that you're calling upon, right? You're making these solutions up as you go along.
So I guess
Very creative.
it goes in between a little bit of both actually. Is that at Milliman we have practices like I work for the Minneapolis practice, so that's just the office and people that work there, and those are essentially franchises that the Minneapolis office and the Chicago Milwaukee office like we get along with each other of course, but we don't work with each other on a day-to-day basis. Like we're entirely separate. Um, but then as another layer of abstraction is the idea of a product group. And so if somebody is doing a bunch of consulting projects for different clients that are all revolve around the same thing, then they might actually like use some entrepreneurial spirit and create a product that lots of different clients can come to them for a prepackaged solution. And as it grows and grows, the product could actually become its own practice as well. That we might have a Minneapolis office, and then we also have a Mara practice, which is a risk adjustment software that we create. So we have prepackaged solutions, and then we also have like bespoke custom made solutions. But that I would say that is the most common thing that we do is that a client will come to us, we do some sort of an analysis for them, and then we move on. But it's not just reusing something we've done before.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds fun.
It is, yeah, I love it. It's very fast paced. We get the opportunity to work at a very cool pace, I guess. Yeah, in that we're reading papers, we're doing literature review. Like my intern that worked for me this summer, working on that causal problem that I kind of outlined. I had her come in, and there's something I've been wanting to do for like 2 years, and I haven't had the time, and I really didn't know how to do it. And so I had her come in, and she basically acted like a PhD student for a summer, where I gave her like a problem statement. I didn't had no idea how to do it, but I was like, this is what I want to be able to do. And then she went in and read a bunch of papers. She read a bunch of articles. She put together a list of methods. We reviewed them together. She started coding them up on her own and working on them. Then we went back to the literature review because we didn't have exactly what we wanted, and just kind of ideated through the whole summer, um, which was a very very fun process that we get to do pretty often.
Nice. So you said something about communicating these solutions to the
Hmm.
clients. And one of the things that I've encountered frequently when I'm talking to people in industry is that that's really a skill that they're looking for. It's in high demand. It's not just the
Hmm.
technical skills of a mathematics degree, but also good communication skills because you want to tell somebody what you've done for them. So what, you
Yeah,
want to comment about that a little bit?
definitely. I remember when I was studying math at Iowa State, doing my undergraduate degree. I started as I think math and secondary education. I liked the idea of teaching, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to go and pursue grad school, like a higher degree in math right away, because basically the thing that you outlined is that I love sharing, I love communicating, I love doing cool things and telling people about them. And I like it even more if I can explain it to someone that's not already familiar with the concept. So the idea of like, doing some really cool research in the area of mathematics and then going to explain it to graduate mathematics students, like if I was a professor or something, um, that's fun and interesting. But I would much rather explain that to a non-technical person, like somebody who has no idea the word kernel even means. And I love seeing the light bulb go on in their head, when someone who would probably say, "Oh, mathematics is so hard. I just like don't get it. I don't know how all of you have these math brains." It's so much fun seeing the little light bulb go on in their head, and they're like, "Dang, maybe it actually isn't that hard. Like maybe I just didn't have somebody explain this to me in the right way before." And so for my job, companies seek out consultants when there's a problem that they don't know how to solve. They come to us, and they pay us pretty good money to solve problems for them because we're experts in certain fields, and we've done a lot of work for lots of different companies. And so at the end of the day, when we hand it back to them, because then we need to move on to our next project and we've solved it, they need to know exactly what we did, which is an interesting problem because they don't know how to do what we did. So that's kind of my favorite part of the job is at the end of a big project, we'll write up this big memo, or a white paper or something. We'll share it with them and explain it to them, because then now they are going to be the stewards of this solution going forward. That if they thought we did a really good job, that we solved it, they're going to want to implement that and keep it going. And so to be able to do that, they have to fully understand everything that we did with all the caveats, all the assumptions that we made, specifically, how they can interpret the results that we get, and how to update and change this framework as time goes on and as more data comes in. So the communication aspect in consulting is so important, and communicating technical things to non-technical audiences is my absolute favorite part of the job. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting because I like to describe mathematics as a language for communicating technical ideas. So
Hmm.
that aligns exactly with what you're describing there.
Yeah. I totally agree.
So you said you were originally thinking about being a teacher, is that right?
Hmm.
And
I love
then
teaching.
you eventually moved away from that. So,
Hmm.
um, so what would you say to those that are thinking maybe teaching, maybe not? I'm not really sure. Um, a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
think,
people think that if you're not going to teach, well, I don't know what you're going to do. So how did
yeah,
your evolution occur?
I think, well, number one, I think anybody that wants to teach, should be encouraged. And my mom is the director of a preschool, and my grandma was a schoolhouse teacher in like a 12-person schoolhouse in an 800-person town in Nebraska. So I had great encouragement growing up that this is a cool profession, and I had great teachers in the schools that I attended. Um, I think one thing, that a lot of young people or students in college or even high school or younger, fall into is that they think that they have less time than they do. And so kind of my general advice would be that if there's something that sounds fun to you and you think that you can do it, like life is really long and you have the opportunity to go and try it. Especially, I remember from the teaching program at Iowa State, like you had plenty of opportunities to go in and shadow, to like help to student teach like later on before you graduate. Um, it's relatively easy to become a substitute teacher if you have a finished degree or a graduate degree. And so there are opportunities to go and try it. And then tutoring is another big one. Iowa State has a great, program for tutoring that I took advantage of all 4 years or 3 years, I think. And so if you think that it's something that you might like, then I would recommend that if you can to just go and try it. There's no better way to figure out how much you would enjoy being in a classroom than being in a classroom and helping out. Um, yeah, I think teaching is great. I ended up settling on what I want to do just because, um, I found it maybe a different outlet for uh, that emotion or feeling, in that I am teaching and I'm still have the opportunity to do that, but also I'm moving quickly and I'm working on new things every day, instead of teaching, a new section coming in, and that brings new challenges and new learning difficulties. But it is for the most part the same material, especially in, like math, where we're teaching the same theorems for the most part that have been around for a long time. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But I think for me personally, I found that I like the opportunity to get the same feelings and emotion out of myself, but with, maybe a constant and ever expanding field.
Tanner, I really enjoyed this conversation. I want to thank you for appearing on Eric's Angle.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been having a great time. Yeah, I'm always happy to help people out and maybe help them get a little more clarity on what they want to do.